Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm going to show you guys basically how we're going to grout a large format wall tile. Large format is a little different than a regular tile because it's got a lot less grout joints and they're going to be a lot smaller and tighter together. A smaller tile with more grout joints is going to be a different method, a different technique. So remember, this video is just basically, it's a large format wall tile grouting. So some of the tools we're going to need for that, there's not a lot. There's not a lot for grouting. Once you have the tile grout joints clean, which you use a knife for that, you're going to either sweep up the debris or use a small little shop vac. Once it's clean, you're basically going to mix your grout up with your margin trowel, and then once your grout is mixed up, you're going to use a grout float. So whenever you're grouting, you're going to want something that's nice and squishy. You want it to feel like a squeegee, and I'll explain that later. So you want a nice squishy grout flow. After the grout is spread, you're going to use this to cut all your corners. This is a very narrow margin trowel, able to get real tight into the corners. After you got all the corners cut clean, you basically are just going to need a clean bucket of water and a sponge. Any clean bucket of water will do. Any sponge will do. There's all kinds of new tools for grouting, like sponge-wise. They'd be a more of advantage on a smaller tile. These big tiles with small grout joints, just a sponge and a bucket will do. A lot of guys will wear gloves too. You know, there's chemicals in these grouts, so you want to protect your hands from getting inside your skin at all times. Sometimes I will just, it's a small job, I'll just knock it out without gloves. So, but I always recommend protect your skin, wear some gloves. All right, so let's knock it out. So the next thing you're gonna wanna do when you're grouting, after you get all your leveling clips out, if you're using a leveling system, obviously you're gonna get your leveling clips out. If you're using spacers, wedges, shims, at that time you pull it all out. The whole entire area. You don't just pull out the area you're gonna work on, you do the entire area. You're gonna grab a razor knife and you're gonna use this to scrape out the grout joints. Make sure there's no thin set. If there's any kind of thin set that's sticking out through the grout joints, it's gonna block the grout from going in, and you know, grout's a color. So in this case, we're gonna be using white. So imagine we can see our gray thin set coming through. You're gonna see little spots of your thin set. So it's very important you go with a knife and you're gonna clean out all of your grout joints. So when you're using your knife to cut your grout joints and clean out your thin set, it's very important to pay attention to what kind of tile you have. If you have a stone or a natural tile, natural material, this razor knife will leave a scratch mark on the tile itself. Should you lose the grout joint as you're scraping, it's very, I would say, tedious at that point if you have a natural stone. If you're in this case where you have a porcelain, your edges of your tile are real sturdy, you can kind of be pretty liberal with your pressure of this knife. Okay. So depending on what tile you're gonna have, you're gonna depend on what kind of pressure you're gonna use with your knife. So next thing you're gonna want to do is protect all the surrounding surfaces from the grout. Grout's creamy, cementitious. Your wall texture is gonna have a lot of texture, pits, gaps. You definitely don't want your grout getting in there. The more you protect with your tape, the less cleanup you're gonna have to do after. A penny in prevention is a pound in final product. So when you're putting the tape on your drywall or whatever your surrounding finishes are, you wanna make sure that the tape doesn't recess into the void. You want the tape to be flush with the surface of your tile. If you put the tape into the void, you're gonna spread your grout, cut it nice and clean, and then when you're all finished and you think you have a great grout job, you're gonna pull your tape away and you're gonna dig out some of the grout. And it makes a really poor look as opposed to a nice clean grout joint. Okay. So there's non-sanded and sanded grout. That's basically the two types of grout. Well, actually there's pre-mixed and cement-based, which is add water. In this case, I'm gonna do just add water because that pre-mixed stuff is pretty nasty to do, nasty to install, and it's really for like showers or any place where there's constant water. So this is an accent wall. Don't care about water, don't care about mold or stain protection. So I'm just gonna do regular cementitious grout. And so like I said, there's sanded and non-sanded. I'm gonna use non-sanded because a non-sanded grout will fill a grout joint up to 1/16 of an inch. A sanded grout will go from 1/16 all the way to 1/4 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, whatever. So tight grout joints, non-sanded, big grout joints, sanded grout. That's basically the rule of thumb. So in this case, I'm gonna do white grout because I want the grout joints to blend away. You know, I just wanna see the tile. A lot of times your grout color you can do all kinds of cool stuff with it. You can do a contrasting grout color, and you know, that'll just be some artistic look. So anyways, this grout, white grout, non-sanded, real tight. And then when I mix this up, I'm basically gonna wanna mix it to the consistency of creamy peanut butter. That's what my dad used to say. Your grout, you're gonna always mix by hand. You're gonna, if you have a big floor to do, you're gonna be tempted to use a paddle on one of your drills or something. But what that does is that aerates the grout. So when you're grouting, you're gonna see maybe like 20 minutes after you spread the grout, all these little bubbles are gonna start to come through, and it's gonna be a nightmare. So learn from me and my mistakes growing up as a kid. Do not use a drill to mix your grout. Always mix it by hand. And it's gonna burn your forearm, but just get it done. So that's basically it about choosing your color and sanded, non-sanded. So let's go ahead and mix this up. So you're always, whether you're mixing thin set, mortar, grout, anything with cement, you're gonna do water first. And what that does is it prevents any dry clumps ending up at the bottom of the bucket. So if you add water first when you're doing any kind of mixing, it eliminates that. Oh man. So I will use a dust mask or mix this outside normally. Whenever I'm mixing inside someone's house or in a small area, you know, you never want to breathe this stuff in. This is chemicals. So I'll show you my trick to a dust mask while I mix is you just pull your shirt over your nose like that. Okay, I got way too much water in here. So if you do like I did and add too much water in the very beginning, instead of having to add more and more powder, just stop right in the middle right in the beginning, once you've realized you've got too much water, dump out the water. When you mix up enough grout for your area, you don't want to overmix or undermix. So you kind of want to approximate how much material to make. So when I put the original water in, I put way too much water, and when I threw the powder in, it was so diluted, it almost looked like water when I put the powder in. And I noticed I put in almost half the bag, so I would at least have to put in the rest of the bag just to make it to the right consistency. But that's gonna be enough to grout an entire area that is 4 times the size of what I'm doing. So what I'm gonna do instead is just dump some of this water out, and hopefully I can salvage this mix. Boom. All right. And that's the dance. You put too much water in, and then you put too much powder in, and then you have to add more water. Okay, so you basically mix it up, like I said, until it looks like creamy peanut butter.